Sitting atop a spruce-clad hill on Memorial University campus is the Agnes Marion Ayre Herbarium. The building might look unassuming, but it holds something extraordinary. A collection of about 100,000 dried plants, lichens, and fungi that have been meticulously labeled and organized. It is the most complete collection of Newfoundland and Labrador plant life on the planet, and it ranks among the most important botanical collections in Canada. This remarkable herbarium was named for an equally remarkable person, Agnes Marion Ayre. A century ago, she collected and pressed about 2,400 plant specimens which now reside inside the repository named in her honor. But that wasn't her only lasting contribution to Newfoundland and Labrador. She was also an activist who helped win voting rights for women. And she was a founding member of the Newfoundland Art Society and the Newfoundland Historical Society. Agnes Marion Miller was born in St. John's on February 2, 1890. She was the third of 4 children, but her brother, John, died from diphtheria 1 year before she was born. That left Agnes with 2 siblings, an older brother named Andrew and a younger sister named Janet. The 3 grew up in a financially well-off and open-minded household. Parents Mary Morrison and Lewis Miller encouraged their children to read widely, savor the natural world, and develop creative and intellectual pursuits like painting and writing. They also instilled in their children a staunch support for women's rights, including the right to vote and run for political office. In the 1890s, Agnes's mother, Mary, was a leading member of the local suffrage movement, which fought to win voting rights for women. So was Agnes's uncle and Mary's brother, Donald Morrison. He was a lawyer and a member of the Newfoundland House of Assembly. In 1892, Donald voted in favor of a bill that would have extended voting rights to Newfoundland women, but the majority of the Newfoundland legislature opposed the bill, so it failed. Despite this setback, Agnes's family continued to support women's suffrage and women's rights. When Agnes and her sister Janet grew up, they followed in their mother's footsteps and became leading members of a revived suffrage movement. In 1909, both joined the newly opened Ladies' Reading Room and Current Events Club in downtown St. John's. It was a place where women and girls could read international journals and newspapers, debate current affairs, and attend lectures on politics, science, the arts, and a wide range of other topics. At a time when the halls of higher education were not always open to women, the reading room served as an informal university. Agnes thrived in this atmosphere of liberal education and even gave one of the club's first lectures. It was called Woman and the Franchise, and it argued why women should be able to vote. In 1920, Agnes became a founding member of the Newfoundland Franchise League. That's her, sitting to the left of the sign, and her sister Janet is on the other side. Agnes quickly became one of the movement's leaders. She wrote letters to newspapers and knocked on doors to stir up support. She was usually accompanied by her fellow suffragist, Frances McNeill. Sometimes the two encountered strong resistance to their views. Agnes later wrote about one encounter in the first volume of the Book of Newfoundland. Surprising to find some otherwise delightful people fly into terrific rages and order us out of their offices when they learned what our mission was. We interviewed all the politicians on both sides, past, present, and future. They one and all thought we wanted to overrun the House of Representatives and take away their positions. A woman's place is in the home, they told us sternly. But Agnes and the other suffragists persevered. After years of hard work, they finally won the right to vote and run for political office in 1925. Their determination and hard-won victory brought about lasting and positive political change. By then, Agnes Miller had become Agnes Miller Ayre. In 1913, she had married Harold Ayre. He was the director of Ayre & Sons, a successful merchant firm that his grandfather had founded in the 1800s. The couple had 4 children together: Louis, born in 1914, followed by Frederick 1 year later, Andrew in 1917, and Janet in 1921. Agnes enjoyed a comfortable and happy marriage with Harold, and the two shared many interests, including gardening, hiking, and reading. But Agnes also enjoyed long solo rambles through the wilderness, and she often brought along an artist's kit to sketch the local plant life. What started off as a hobby developed into a serious scientific pursuit, and one that would have far-reaching impacts. In the 1920s, Agnes Ayre developed a deep and abiding interest in plants. It started after a friend of hers named Jenny Noling visited St. John's from her home in the United Kingdom. She commented that there was no comprehensive list of Newfoundland and Labrador wildflowers, so the pair decided to compile their own. After Noling returned home, though, she withdrew from the project, so Ayre forged on alone, and with incredible focus and determination. For years, she tromped through the wilds of Newfoundland and Labrador, searching for as many different flowers, plants, mushrooms, and lichens as she could find. She also assigned herself the task of identifying each specimen. It was an enormous challenge at a time when no comprehensive catalog of local plant life existed, and access to information was far more difficult than it is today. Ayre corresponded with leading experts, and she visited botanical collections at Montreal's McGill University, London's South Kensington Museum, and Gray's Herbarium at Harvard University. That's where she met Professor Merritt Fernald, a leading botanist who consulted with Ayre. He praised her collection and her skills as a self-taught botanist. At the end of Ayre's study, she had collected and preserved 2,440 specimens and painted 1,890 watercolors. Both are astonishing numbers. But that's not all. In 1935, she published her book, Wildflowers of Newfoundland. Over the course of about a decade, Ayre had made a prolific, meaningful, and lasting contribution to our knowledge of Newfoundland and Labrador flora. Agnes Ayre was a woman of wide-ranging interests. In addition to botany and suffrage, she also studied local folklore and history. She was particularly well-versed in the history and origins of local names, which included those assigned to places and to people. This pursuit resulted in the publication of her booklet in 1936, Newfoundland Names. She also had an encyclopedic knowledge of the various folk beliefs attached to local plants. For example, dogberry trees, which are also known as rowan trees, could bring good luck, while ash could ward off troublesome fairies. Ayre was also a founding member of the Newfoundland Historical Society, which is still active today. And in 1925, she was a founding member of the Newfoundland Art Society. For close to 2 decades, the Society organized local exhibitions and arranged for local artists to exhibit their works at international shows. Agnes Marion Miller Ayre lived a full and productive life. Sadly, though, it was not a long one. She died of cancer in 1940 at the age of 50. But her legacy lives on in the votes that Newfoundland and Labrador women cast in every election, and in another important way, too. In 1954, Ayre's family donated her extensive collection of plant specimens and watercolors to Memorial University. They formed the basis for what was named the Agnes Marion Ayre Herbarium, a place where scientists and plant lovers continue to benefit from and expand upon the study Ayre carried out a century ago.